What is going on, everybody? How is everyone doing? Hopefully you're doing well. Tonight is the Sixers and Hawks game 3. They match up. Let's see if the Sixers can go 2-1 in the series. I'm with my boys, Mr. Crockpot, aka Dibes, and Jay Blevins, NBA, also known as Jason. We are here and we're the Painted Lines, and we're excited to be here. How is everyone doing? How y'all doing?
Ready to rock and roll, baby. Let's go. Let's get that 2-1.
Fan-fucking-tastic.
Oh, wow.
World fucking champions.
Much less nervous than I was for game 2. No question.
Yeah, I feel like definitely going into game 2, people were a lot more concerned after that. But I don't think enough people thought about just how much Atlanta Hawks played extremely well and how bad the Sixers played in the first half of that game. So I agree with you. The confidence going in this game is definitely a lot bigger. We have not heard from Jason at all about on the live stream since the series started there. So I'm curious to hear your opinions on this series, Jason, and just what you're thinking about tonight's game.
I mean, I think it just becomes really, really simple with this team. They are better than the team overall, and it is as simple, in my view, as getting Trae Young to play left to right instead of north to south, right? So east to west instead of north to south. When you just look at the way he plays, he wants to play in the middle of the floor, and he wants to distribute out to the wings and the corners from there. All of his offense, all of his shots tend to come inside of that, lane extended. And he can hit from 30 feet. But if you really just look at where he does damage, it's really in the lane and extended, that lane extended out to the logo. If you and in the first 2 possessions in game 2, you saw Ben come out and shade him, actually forcing him to dribble right when he was on the right side of the court, which most people, when they shade a ball handler, would shade them to go to their offhand. But what Ben was doing was shading him to force him to the sidelines instead of into the middle, allowing him in the middle. If you do that, it changes the way their entire offense plays. It just changes everything. It changes their routes on the pick and roll lobs. It changes the angles. It changes his shot efficiency. And you can basically look at from that first half in game 1 when Danny Green offered 0 resistance. And he went, I think he started 5 for 7. And he's probably shot, under 40% since that first half. So to me, it's very simple. The formula is there. Tonight he might hit 6 threes from the wing and make me look dumb. But I mean, all of the evidence and all of the data points to shade that guy to the sidelines, keep him moving left to right, right to left, keep him from moving north and south, and you're a better team.
And it definitely seems like Ben Simmons has been the guy who's been able to do that. So what do you got for us, Dibes?
This is the best stat of game 2. You look at Trae Young's usage percentage in that low to upper 30s. You look at game 1, 34.6%. Game 2, 28.2%. Then you get to touches of Trae Young. Like you said, Justin, they did such a good job of icing this dude, forcing him to the baseline. In the mid-80s for touches per game in the regular season and in that Knicks series. Look at that Sixers game 2. 40-5. If that's not a recipe for success against the Atlanta Hawks, I don't know what is. Jason, you touched on it. Trae Young over the last 6 quarters shooting 34.6%, 9 of 26 from the field, 9% from 3, 1 for 11, 20% on pull-up jump shots. And in that span of 6 quarters, they have outscored the Hawks 188 to 156. So my question, my line of thinking is how the heck, what is the Atlanta, if this is a chess game, and we all know it is, what is the Hawks move? How do they adjust to Ben and Matisse locking up Trae Young here moving forward in this series? Any thoughts on that, Jason?
Yeah, I think Herter hurt them a little bit by penetrating into that open lane as they spent so much time pushing Young out. I think Bogdanovich is dangerous. I'm surprised when I see how much he hurts them early in the games and how it just doesn't sustain itself over 48 minutes. But I think those are the two things that would scare you. The two big guys that you would think would scare you really are downstream effects of Young getting downhill and forcing your big to step out on him. And that's what opens up the lobs and all of the other stuff. So, if you can take away Young, I think the only two other people that can really beat you are Herter and Bogdanovich. And, Bogdanovich to me is the scarier of the two.
And this is why, I'm somewhat confident here heading into game 3 is Herter has been playing lights out. There's got to be some point where Kevin Herter starts to slow it down a little bit. He's got a 72-plus effective field goal percentage in the playoffs, shooting nearly 49% from 3 so far. You got to think, even though they're home and they've won an astronomical amount of wins here at home lately, the Atlanta Hawks, I have to think Herter, can't stay on fire like this. So you look at the matchups. We have a comment here by Koba saying that he hopes Embiid to try to get Capella in early foul trouble. Embiid has been cooking Clint Capella through 2 games. You look at defensively handling Trae Young. I'm just trying to think of, other than Danilo Gallinari, who went off in game 2, that guy's been hot or cold, hit or miss. I'm trying to think in my head, how does the Atlanta Hawks counter what the Sixers have? And I don't know. I don't see it. Cam Reddish? What do they got? Hunter is out. So I'm just trying to think, what we're going to see tonight.
In my head, the toughest thing is that their best counter is now out for the season. Their best counter is DeAndre Hunter, and DeAndre Hunter now went down, has been down, and I think as of right before game 2 or right after game 2, they announced that he was getting surgery on his injury. And so that guy's defense honestly was their best chance on slowing down a guy like Ben Simmons, who's been getting a lot of shooters open, a guy who's best going to be able to go at Tobias Harris. And I'm looking at a Twitter notification that popped up. Joel Embiid is officially playing tonight after being listed as questionable. So there's a very good chance Capella will be indeed in foul trouble. But Back to what I was saying about DeAndre Hunter. With him not being in the game, he to me is their best X factor when it comes to guarding against a guy like Tobias Harris, especially. And so it's kind of hard. I feel like their one answer isn't really there defensively. Jason, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I agree. I think you're right. I just before game 1, I looked at these counters and you take away our best option, here's our second option, we take away your best option, and then you go down to options 3 and 4 where the counters and most of those options just fall on the side of the Sixers now at this point.
Yeah. How about this stat? Low and slow is the key to the Sixers offense. Whenever the Sixers have a pace of less than 100, the Sixers are 3-0 in the playoffs this year. It's a small sample size, of course. In those games, the Sixers have an effective field goal percentage of 59%, a turnover percentage of 8%, an offensive rating of 124.7, and the Sixers are shooting 40% or higher in every one of those games. Jason, what's your quick thoughts on the Sixers slowing down the pace and what makes them so effective in that?
Yeah, so it starts with their best player who will play best at a slower pace. Big men do, post players even more so. The playoffs tend to be a half-court driven game. It's a completely different game from regular season. You have more time. Everyone gets back on defense. Everyone is disciplined. It really becomes the teams that can get into their secondary action and then a tertiary action and still get a good shot that that wind up going deep into the playoffs. So it's a really good sign that they play better at a slower pace, because teams that rely on fast break tend to flame out fairly early in the playoffs historically, and they just always have. Yeah, the Warriors, I think, changed their perception of that forever, but they were both a high-paced team, a high turnover team, but also just incredibly great in the half court, like the best of all time.
I think an interesting. Sorry. I think an interesting question is brought up here by Mikey though. He says, "What's more important in this game, our defense or our offense?" So, Jason, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's no question about it. There's no question about it. It's defense is more important. If you can execute, take away the head of the snake, that you're just a better team. So
the bread and butter, the DNA of this team is defense. We saw it. We already talked about it during the beginning of the session pregame show. So another preview or another key to tonight's game is dominating the fourth quarter. You saw in game one, in that span of 3 minutes late in the fourth quarter, the Hawks committed 4 turnovers. 2 of those were on Trae Young. If it wasn't for Bogdanovich and that lob pass to John Collins, it could have been 2-0 Sixers lead here in this series. But the Hawks had a negative 48.3 net rating in the fourth quarter in game one. In the fourth quarter of game two, the Hawks had a negative 36 net rating, which means both game one and game two combined, negative 42.1 net rating in the fourth quarter. The Sixers are one of the best fourth quarter teams in the NBA. They showed it all regular season. I think there it is. I think the key to this game is just keep it coming. We've seen it all season long. Ben, lock up Trae, rotate with Matisse, and that's one of my other keys to this game tonight is lock up the fourth quarter. And we've seen that second half defense from the Sixers dominate and lead them to W's all season long.
Yeah, I think this comment is really smart from Koba. So
yeah.
I think they should have been doing this early and often in game one. I'm surprised. I was really surprised that they didn't. I think they should be forcing the Hawks to switch as much as they can and try to get that mismatch of ideally Tobias Harris guarding Trae Young guarding Tobias Harris, and Tobias Harris should take him down to the woodshed. And if you can both lean on him early, you might take his legs out for some of the deep threes later on, although Trae is effortless when he shoots. Or put a couple of fouls on him, you might disrupt their plan as far as rotation. So I think it's really important, and I think if they split in Atlanta, I think it's super important that they develop an attack strategy to force Trae Young to play more defense. Atlanta's hiding him right now on Danny Green.
Big time.
I have a question for you guys about that, because obviously we've noticed that for the first 2 games of this series, Chris has been saying that a lot as well as you, Jason. And my thing is obviously if we're noticing it, Doc's noticed it too. So why what do you think the reasons are for him to not do that? Do you think it's because it's just going to take too long in the shot clock to get it? Do you think it's because the Hawks are already not switching much? Because I've noticed, because the guys who are ball handling, unless it's Seth Curry basically who's dribbling up at the top of the key, they're not really going over screens that often, because they other than him, they're not really worried about somebody coming off the dribble from behind the 3-point line. So do you think that changes things? They're not forcing people. It's kind of hard for a team to force people to switch when there's not as much of a threat to go over a screen, if that makes sense.
It does. And Doc said that teams don't switch when Joel is involved in a play, especially a pick and roll. So, yeah, I mean, it does make sense. I still think it's something that they should try to force. If there's one counter that doesn't go their way, they don't have someone in the game at all times that can force, that's playing well enough, that can force Trae Young to play defense.
Well, you just look at who Trae Young is covering. Majority of the time is Denny Green or it's Seth Curry. The Atlanta Hawks have done a terrific job hiding him. But only 9 field goals attempted on Trae Young in this series. That has to go up. You've got to get this guy moving on defense 100%. And then Matisse Thybulle is the other guy. So what's their role in the offense? To sit on so they're not. I've been preaching for Tyrese Maxey just to kind of attack a little bit. Not a lot of possessions, just attack and get Trae Young moving. Is that too crazy, Jason? Like, where do you think with that?
I mean, Tyrese started the year settling for a lot of pull-up jumpers and 10-footers, 12-footers, floaters. He then took that extra dribble, got all the way to the rim. I've seen a little bit of him reverting, and I don't know if it's something about the Atlanta defense, something about Collins and Capella, but I've seen him reverting and pulling up, and I don't love that shot. I just never have. And I think very few people can do it, and he's not one of them, not yet. So I don't love it. I would like I before game 1, I was talking to someone, one of the other media folks, and I said, man, you could maybe put Maxey in and just have the two of them have a foot race on every possession for a few minutes. And it just
there's no way Trae can keep up with Tyrese Maxey to the basket. No way.
Yeah, but if he's not going all the way to the basket, then it doesn't matter. If he's going slamming on the brakes at 12 feet and pulling up, that's exactly the shot that Atlanta wants. That's the shot that the Nets settled for 2 years ago, and it got them bounced in 5 games. That D'Angelo Russell was taking. The Sixers were getting him to fall for that. You just can't have it.
A question for you guys with Maxey. So obviously Tyrese's game has a lot to do with going the rim, like we've been talking about. Do you think part of the reason why he's kind of moved his game a little further back, at least for like what he did last game, is because he's become a little bit predictable with going to the rim? So the bigs are just dropping down on him a lot faster, and he isn't able to get those high percentage shots that he was getting before.
Yeah, I think that's part of it, but now is not the time to develop new aspects of a rookie's game.
I don't think it's new necessarily, though. I would say the frequency is new.
What happens when someone does that to you? It means that their man is now open 6 feet from the basket, right? For either a lob or a dump off and an easy basket. And you just have to thread that needle and get them the ball. I don't think he's advanced as a passer. I don't think he's a great passer. And he's not advanced to the point where you want him doing that sort of pick your poison stuff and he makes you pay for staying home on him. So he may get there, and it's the next stage in his development.
Speaking of next stage in developments and that kind of stuff, and the passing we were talking about before, it seems like this man that we've been talking about on and off all season, Shake Milton, had an insane game last game, and Tyrese obviously went down a little bit, dives, stop. So what are your thoughts on the Shake and Tyrese debate? Obviously, like some people, I've heard of many people are like super torn on this. A lot of people are like, okay, Tyrese has been the hot hand. Obviously, we want to ride that. But Shake obviously had an amazing game last game. So who do you think gets those minutes this game?
Shake will start, then and if he'll get about 3 minutes to see if he's carried over or if the Hawks adjust.
What's your overall thoughts on George Hill, Jason? I'd love to hear your thoughts on George. He's only got like 3 shot attempts the last 3 games. Like he's not shooting the ball offensively. He does all the right things, but he's not getting the ball in the basket. Any quick thoughts on George Hill?
Just he looks like a professional, but he's very underwhelming, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean,
I watched him a lot, and he was a lot more aggressive in most other situations.
He certainly showed explosion there in the last 2 months of the season, at least, getting to the rim. But if we're talking like 4 possessions against Trae Young, like he had in game 2, give that to Maxey. At least you might get a chance to get to the free throw line or draw a foul.
Part of what I'm seeing with his game that is kind of different from what you saw when he was with the Bucks, especially, is he runs with a completely different lineup where there's not as much space for him to work with that he would have on another team. He doesn't run with the starters as much as he did with teams like OKC or more relevant, Ali, in my opinion, the Bucks, where he was pretty much their starting point guard and ran minutes with guys like Brook Lopez at the 5. And at the time, I believe they had Ilyasova as well running the 4 or 5. So it's like, the kind of spacing he was able to work with on getting to the rim and creating shots, I think you saw a lot of that there. But with the team he's working with now, in the backup minutes he's running a lot with Dwight Howard, with Matisse Thybulle, with Ben Simmons at times. You're not seeing as much spacing. Also with the fact that in those bench rotations now in the playoffs, you're seeing Tobias Harris get a lot more minutes with them, and you see a lot more isolations given with him on the court, where George Hill is playing more of a catch-and-shoot role. So I think it's a little bit tough to say it's his lack of aggression. I think it's more the lack of his role in the offense when it comes to him when he is on the court.
I think that's spot on. Next topic.
Thank you.
I just want the Sixers to come out. I just want the Sixers to come out and punch this team in the face, just like they did in the first quarter of game 2, where the Sixers were up 33-20. Trae Young had like 4 points, 0 of 3 from 3. That's what I want to see. Like, I remember there was one play in that first quarter where Trae got rotated off of Ben Simmons. No, it was the opposite. It was Matisse. And Ben Simmons came in and blocked a 3-point shot from Trae Young. That's the level of defense I want to see. Gang defense. I want to see the Sixers dominate points in the paint. That is Sixers basketball. Slow it down. Get Joel the ball. Feed him down low. Let's hit our threes, and let's start out fast. At least, just tempo-wise, where we can, put some pressure on the Atlanta Hawks. Ben had one personal foul in the first, part of the game. Everything went pretty well for the Sixers that first, quarter and a half, when it just kind of fell apart there. But I want to see the Sixers respond, because the Atlanta Hawks are at home where they've had a lot of success. I want to see the Sixers respond with all that noise and all that pressure. But we know that Ben and Joel will have no problem stepping up with that kind of crowd.
So
I'm firmly on record, by the way, Atlanta Hawks, terrible fans.
So speaking of them being in Atlanta now, Dave, our very own Dave, said, who will be the first Sixer to shush the crowd? You can't pick Embiid. So before you two go, I have a pick. All
right.
Dwight Howard.
Ooh, interesting.
Oh, so you think we're gonna be?
I think Dwight will be on the
10
bench.
minutes into the game.
I think Dwight will be on the bench. Embiid will do something crazy, or Ben will do something crazy, and you'll see Dwight on the bench going like this. Just saying.
Okay. I think I would probably go Seth.
That was my second pick.
That was my choice.
He talked this morning, by the way, and we drifted a little bit into talking about his dad, and I really want to find a time to. I don't think people realize how revolutionary his dad was, not just for putting those two kids in the NBA, but Del Curry was an absolute 2020 player in the 90s when no one thought about offense that way. He was an absolute sniper. 40% shooter from 3, never got enough shots. I mean, Del Curry was a beast.
I'm going Tobias Harris. 16 points in the first quarter, 8 of 9 in that first quarter. I would love to see him shush the Atlanta faithful with a huge performance, first quarter performance in game 3, man.
Has he ever done that though? I mean, super.
No.
respectful.
Tobias makes faces and he definitely gives energy, but he doesn't necessarily like talk to the crowd besides like when he's like, I'm like that, or like I'm an all-star, like when he's done that kind of stuff.
He said
Rarely
that
does he get revved up. He never gets revved up, but I want to see it tonight. Let's go.
I want to talk about this for a second. Can we talk about how great Seth Curry has been? Man, he's been flying under the radar. I don't think he's been flying under the radar, but because we've definitely talked about him a lot. But Seth Curry is really like the guy you needed on this team. Like he really is. And I mean, we talked about this coming into the season where a lot of people were like, oh, how is he going to do coming off the bench? Or how's he going to do being in the starting lineup after being a bench role, after being a bench player his whole career? Is he going to be able to make these amount of shots on a high minutes? Like, is he going to be still a 40, like as good as he is? And he has shown at a high rate just how good of a player he is and how good of a shooter he is, man. He, to me, is so impressive, and I love watching him.
Yeah, look at his offensive rating is 136 in the playoffs so far. I mean, he's been lights out. Other than one bad game, and I love this comment. Wild card Thibault, he's too nice to do that. More likely just
he's not that nice, but he's definitely savvy enough.
He's one of those guys. I really think the NBA like fan, not all Sixers fans, but I think the NBA fan base has him pinned as like this super nice guy. Where like, yes, he's nice, but dude, that guy's a competitor. Like he will get in your face. You've seen it a few times this year.
No cameras on. He definitely has a public face.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
Oh, cool. Yeah.
No question. Yes,
dude. He's definitely that guy who like you even see it like on some of the post game interviews where like Tyrese is coming over messing with him and he's like, bro, what are you doing? Like, what are you like?
Every time I see Matisse Thybulle do something great, he's just smiling from ear to ear. Just
yeah. He's got an attitude to him though. He does definitely have an attitude to him.
He was a 23-year-old rookie who had plenty of time to really craft his strategy for his public image. And he's done it really well. And that doesn't make him a bad person. I think he's a good, really good person. And I think he's got a lot of interesting hobbies. But so I'm sure this will be taken the wrong way, but he's not walking around with a goofy grin on his face, staring at the sky all day. He's a serious person.
He's got some shit to him.
He's a serious person.
Dude, he's one, like, he is legitimately, like, he's probably my favorite player on the Sixers right now. I love defense for one. That's like at my core. I love that, but also just because, like, I don't know, he seems like a nice dude, but he's got some shit to him, which I like. That's what I like. I like just like, you like TJ McConnell because TJ McConnell like that.
Mm-hmm.
But TJ McConnell's game didn't portray to the Sixers as well as it did for the Pacers. So,
Is he better for the Pacers than he was for the Sixers?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know about that. Really?
And he's up in like every statistical category for himself.
Mm-hmm.
But listen, I think we should probably get off here. Game, if it's not already started, is about to start. So guys, I hope everyone enjoys the game. We will be back here right after the clock hits 0 for Sixers post-game show of Game 3. So please come back and hang out with us. If you go onto the channel, if you haven't already, drop a like and subscribe if you love talking Sixers and talking NBA basketball in general, because we're always on here doing that. Dibs, appreciate you coming on. Jason, obviously, appreciate you as always. And we will see you all for the post-game show. Peace.
Go Sixers!